welcome to Talking Point one more time. Today I am joined by Kristin and Patricia O'Donnell, and we are going to talk about something that's coming up. It's very near and dear to the both of you. It's World Eating Disorder Action Day, which is coming up on June 2nd, correct?
Correct, yes.
So Patricia, this is kind of personal for you. Do you want to maybe tell everybody what your story is?
Sure. So when I was in high school, I was diagnosed with an eating disorder. It sort of began as I was a very competitive athlete, and I started after my junior year of high school. I decided I'm going to get in the best shape of my life. I'm going to have the best season of my life my senior year. I played varsity tennis and ice hockey, so I was like, all right, this is happening. So I decided to eat really healthy and work out a lot. And initially it was all very healthy, and I got a lot of praise for it, and I was making good progress, but it pretty quickly spiraled out of control. I got injured from over-exercising, and it just became something that was not normal any longer. And eventually I was sent to the hospital, and I spent about a week in the hospital, and then I did some outpatient treatment before we eventually found the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota. That I went through a full year of intensive family-based treatment with my family's support, traveling back and forth to Minnesota from twice a week and then once a week and then every other week. And I was able to recover, and I've been at the University of Virginia for the past 3 years, so I've been doing really well. But eating disorders are something that they're very misunderstood and very difficult to identify and treat. So this is something that means a lot to both of us, because my mom was right with me through the thick of it, and it was really hard on her too. It wasn't just hard on me, it was hard on the whole family. And there are just a lot of things surrounding eating disorders that make it difficult to talk about, difficult to address, and difficult to identify in the first place. So
yeah, I can imagine. It seems that society tends to put a lot of pressure on people to achieve sometimes unattainable goals, and those goals really aren't for everyone. So I'm glad things worked out.
thanks.
Kristin, tell me a little bit about the World Eating Disorder Action Day, which is coming up June 2nd.
Sure. Eating Disorders Action Day is a new event. It's worldwide, and it is a day for researchers, eating disorder professionals, policymakers, affected individuals and families to come together and provide accurate information and dispel myths about eating disorders and make it less of a stigma throughout the world.
So tell us, what are some of those myths?
Sure. Well, number one, that there is no one body type basically that has an eating disorder. Eating disorders do not discriminate. All sexes, sexual orientation, socioeconomic backgrounds, every race, creed, color, anyone can be affected by an eating disorder. And the media portrays eating disorders as having, as being kind of one thing, and it becomes many times in media as can be, looked at as kind of a joke.
Okay.
But eating disorders, I'm telling you, are a very, very serious mental illness and affects up to 70 million people worldwide. It has the highest mortality rate of any mental illness, and it is very frightening.
I can imagine. And it takes on a variety of different forms, too. I mean, it's not just one type of eating disorder. I can imagine that there are several different things and several different causes. I mean, you get a lot of peer pressure, job pressure, if you have to have a certain body type to do well at your job. Sales and those sorts of things usually are the ones that come to mind. Modeling, of course.
Right.
So coming up on June 2nd, I know there's a lot of things that are leading up to it. You mentioned a Twitter feed.
Yes, there is a Twitter. It is, what was it again, Patricia? At World ED. At World ED Day, with hashtags We Do Act and World Eating Disorders Day, hashtag World Eating Disorders Day. Okay. There's a vast amount of information that has been tweeted by professionals and that are dispelling myths and wanting people to talk about it. There's such a stigma surrounding eating disorders, and so the Twitter feed is a 30-hour. It's on June 2nd.
Okay.
So we're asking people to go. There's also a Facebook page, but go to Twitter, go to Facebook, also on Instagram, and get involved in the conversation. Learn a bit about it. There are evidence-based treatments and a lot of information coming out now that eating disorders are absolutely curable. Okay. That people can at any point in their experience with an eating disorder, with having this disease, can seek treatment and can get better. And it's early intervention is best, but if you go to Twitter and the Facebook page and the Instagram, okay. There's all kinds of information there.
Good. So what are some of the things that we can do, the people watching and listening, to either learn more about eating disorders or participate in World Eating Disorder Action Day? Mm-hmm.
Well, again, going to Twitter, going to Facebook, going to Instagram. There's also LinkedIn information as well. Okay. A fabulous website is the National Eating Disorder Association website, or the acronym is NEDA, N-E-D-A. Okay. NEDA has, the website is outstanding. They have not only information, but also 800 numbers where you can call and talk to people that have experience with the disease, okay. And also different resources that you can reach out to, because there's more than one type of treatment, because there's eating disorders can present in many different ways. So there's not just one treatment. It's tailored to the individual.
Okay, good.
And going to the NEDA website and talking to somebody, if you know somebody that is suffering, mm-hmm. Or if you are suffering, absolutely go to National Eating Disorder Association website and reach out to someone for more information.
Now, this is a worldwide event. You mentioned that there are things like some of the buildings are turning their lights a certain color. What's that about?
Yeah, again, this is a worldwide event, and I can't tell you what exact buildings around the world are going to be lit up in honor of this day, okay. and to promote this day. But I suspect there will be buildings in New York City, because...
Is it a specific color?
Yeah, do you know the...
Purple and green.
Purple and green?
Yeah, it depends on... the National Eating Disorders Association does this sort of thing every year with National Eating Disorders Awareness Week, which is in February. So they do the same thing where, like, the Empire State Building was lit up with colors then. So I would guess they're going to be along the same lines of that.
Okay. So I imagine they could find more information on the website if people want to change out their street lights or the porch lights, those sorts of things. Mm-hmm. Is there anything else that we want people to know as the day approaches?
Well, there are some, as I mentioned, a lot of myths, a lot of untruths, mm-hmm. surrounding eating disorders. And if I can just mention a few Absolutely. Of them here. Many people with eating disorders look healthy, and you cannot tell by looking at someone if they have an eating disorder. Okay. That's very difficult. That is what makes it so difficult to diagnose, because it's a struggle, and they all present a little bit differently.
No visible symptoms.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Individuals are not to blame. This is a complex interplay of genetics and biology and environment. And so individuals don't choose this. It is a disease just as cancer is a disease. Families are not to blame. In fact, families can be a very valuable resource, as in our case, in recovery and support. So that's very important. Eating disorders carry a very high increased risk of suicide as well as other co-occurring problems. There's, maybe you can help me with this, Patricia, but drug addiction, anxiety, self-injury, suicidal ideation, all these co-occurring problems tend to mask the core of what's going on, and which is what happened in our case. For a good year or more, we didn't recognize that she had an eating disorder. We were trying to work with physicians and therapists in the area to address the symptoms, because we didn't know it was an eating disorder. It wasn't until she continued to get worse and worse and worse and worse until she had to be hospitalized in Chicago, and that's when they said she has an eating disorder.
So maybe something you could share with us is, if we're living with someone, whether it's a child or even adults, that we suspect may have issues, what are some of the signs that people should look for if they think that someone might have some sort of eating disorder with them?
Sure. Well, I would say that individual starts to, and again, there's so many, there are so many ways that this can present. I can speak from my experience. Retreating from what has been normal. Patricia was a very social individual, had a lot of friends, and her personality started to change a bit as she got more involved in wanting to eat healthy and exercise. She spent less and less time with her friends, less and less time with with our family.
Almost becomes an obsession.
Yeah, definitely. And also developing these rules around food. I'll only eat this. We'd sit down for dinner, and she would say, "I'm not. I'll eat the carrot sticks and I'll eat the meat, but I'm not having any bread. I'm not having. I won't have," and absolutely refusing to even eat a single chip or a cookie. Those types of things are what I remember. But again, there's so many ways that this is such a complex and confusing. It's very counterintuitive, this disease.
I would think so. I mean, because there's probably a threshold there that is very gray between actually being healthy and watching what you eat, staying away from the garbage foods, and then at some point you cross over,
right,
where it transitions from just being a healthy person to actually having a serious problem.
Right.
And that's what's so difficult about this, and because there are so many different things that contribute to it, like biology and genetics and environment, it's difficult to pinpoint, and this has been like a contention point among researchers and advocates for a long time. You don't really know what's the tipping point, and how do we help people from reaching that tipping point? Because you just don't know what, some people can diet and do that sort of thing and be okay and come back from it afterwards, but some people start to engage in these sort of diet behaviors and it just spirals into an eating disorder like it did for me. So you just never know what's going to happen, which is why it's so dangerous.
So Patricia, again, with the people watching and listening, if there was something that you could tell people from your experience, someone who may be having an eating disorder or thinks they may be a parent or someone who lives with someone who has an eating disorder, what one piece of advice or inspiration might you give them?
I would say that it's important to know that no matter how deep you are in it, that you can come back from it. And it might take a lot of work like it did for me, and a lot of work and support. but it's not something that has to take over your life anymore. It really took over my life, and I remember those years as I picture myself in a little rabbit hole, just in the darkness always, because that's how I felt. I felt so alone. But that's another tricky thing about this disease, is that it tricks you into thinking you have to do it alone. It tricks you into isolating so that it can keep you sick. And I think the most important thing to know is that there are always people that will support you, and there's help out there. It just might take a little while to find it, but it's so worth it to find help, and life is worth it, and this disease doesn't have to win.
Good, good. All right, so I imagine there's a lot of resources. If people want more information, you mentioned a couple of websites. Participate in the World Eating Disorder Action Day coming up on June 2nd. Is there anything else in closing that you want to talk about real quickly?
Sure. As Patricia mentioned, secrecy and shame really help this disease thrive within the individual and within the families. And it's so important to talk about it. It's so important to reach out to friends, family, talk to people at the NIDA website. They have so much information. There's, the medical community is trying to catch up with the information on eating disorders, because, when a lot of these individuals were in medical school, they didn't get much training, and there's so much research going on now that is providing evidence-based research and evidence-based treatments. And so you may or may not get a lot of information from your medical community, which is unfortunately our case. We had to go to Chicago, we had to go to Mayo Clinic in Minnesota to really get the information we needed to help her recover. So just don't stop looking for answers, and don't keep it in secrecy, don't keep it in shame.
Right, and typically that's usually how these things thrive,
Yes.
is you're not talking about them. People aren't aware. That's why we have things like the Ice Bucket Challenge and things like that, which is one of the reasons why we're here today with World Eating Disorder Action Day coming up on June 2nd. Just talk about it. If you are a young person living with your parents, talk to your parents about it. Talk to your friends about it. Let someone know. There's no need to keep this quiet. As with anything, there are major problems that everybody is aware of: heroin addiction, violence, things like that. But a lot of these issues fall under the radar because people aren't talking about them. So I'm hoping that's what we're going to be able to do through this message, is just raise awareness, maybe pique someone's curiosity, visit the website, and just start discussions about it. So I thank you very much, both of you, Patricia and Kristin, for coming. Thank you for sharing your story with us. So Kristin, tell me one more time, so the viewers and the people listening on the radio station can maybe write this down or remember it. What's the Twitter feed and Facebook and website again?
Sure. The Twitter feed the handle is @WorldED with hashtags WeDoAct and hashtag World Disorder Action Day. The Facebook is World Eating Disorders Day,
Okay.
the Facebook page. There's also an Instagram, which is World Eating Disorders Action, and LinkedIn, World Eating Disorders Action Day.
Okay.
You can also go to worldeatingdisordersday.org, and then, of course, the NEDA website, the National Eating Disorders Association website.
Great.
And all of those will have more information.
Great. Well, Kristin, Patricia, thank you again for joining us. And until next time, I'm Mayor Mike, and we've been Talking Point. So we're going to talk a little bit about, we have Memorial Day coming up on Monday, and there's events all over the county and central Wisconsin in general, but I wanted to talk specifically about some of the events that are going on in Stevens Point. So with me I have Parks Director Tom Schrader. Tom, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
So tell us, I know there's a whole list of events that are going on for Memorial Day services. Can you give me an idea of where and when these are?
Yeah, it'll be busy on Monday. We have the large event is down at Piffner Pioneer Park, put on by the county.
At the band shell.
Yeah, at the band shell. I would get down there about 10, so you get a good seat. I think it starts about 10:30, and usually the city band is there. Ceremonies, they have a flyover sometimes, if the weather permits, where they drop a wreath
Yep.
in the Wisconsin River. Also, the Bell, which is located just north of the Clark Street Bridge, the monument. Mike Pohl, I think was his name. They redid the Bell, redid the whole thing, and they're going to rededicate that on Monday too. Well, there's also usually a small ceremony at McLaughlin Park by the fountain.
Okay.
With
And
the
McLaughlin
Polish.
Park, for people who don't know where that is, where's McLaughlin
It's
Park?
on Main Street coming into town.
That's where, near the fountain?
Near the fountain.
That's out
Yep,
there?
the welcome sign to Stevens Point. The Polish Army people usually do a ceremony there.
Okay, because that's also near Kazimierz Pulaski's
Yes,
statue.
Yep, that's where Kashmir is.
Yep.
Well, his statue.
Yeah.
And then there's one on the South Side Memorial Park, where they did a lot of work over there.
And that's
redoing
with the
monument.
flagpole.
Yes.
It's kind of hard to get to with the redesign now, but if you, it's before the underpass if you're coming north, I'm sorry, coming south. There's the big flagpole there right
Yep.
before the train tracks. You can get there through, was it Park Street?
Yeah. Basically, everybody knows where Belts is. So the stoplight
Okay,
is you're heading
sure,
north,
there you go.
heading south, the stoplight, turn right.
Yep, go
Skips
down that
bowling
road by
alley,
Skips.
plenty of parking there for that event.
Yeah, and they just recently redid that one too a couple of years ago. They restored that
Yep.
monument over there.
Restored all the brickwork, put a new flagpole in.
And do you know what time that one is?
I don't know what time that one is.
They're usually all around 11 o'clock, right?
Right, yep. Right around just before noon usually.
Okay, so we've got all sorts of events. Then we've got the big one, the main one. I know that I've attended that one for the last several years at Piffner Pioneer Park at the band shell. That one probably has the most
They'll have the
activity.
largest, yeah,
the largest
activity
crowd.
attendance with the
And
city
then
band playing.
Right down the river from that is going to be the Memorial Bell, where they're going to rededicate that.
Yep.
And then the activities going on at McLaughlin Park on the east side, near the fountain and the Kazimierz Pulaski statue, the Welcome to Stevens Point sign. And then finally, the last one is going to be on the south side at the Veterans Memorial down there.
We only missed the north side.
Yeah.
We'll have to do something to dedicate something on the north side.
Piffner
yeah.
Park is definitely in the north side.
Yeah, it's kind of west. We'll let the west siders feel.
All right, so go get out and participate with the services that are going to be going on this Monday for Memorial Day. Thank you very much for joining us.